Oh no, what we have is a dreaded thread warp that's broken. I'm going to show you how to fix this, which I think is the easier way. What we do is pull another warp through, tie it with a T-pin here and weave a distance. Then take a needle and take this shorter warp thread and take a needle and sew it into the fabric. I found it easier to do it a different way. What we're going to do is take whatever system you use and get some more warp, and what we want is enough warp to finish your project plus a little extra warp the distance of the fell line down to the floor that we're going to weight. Now what I have is, this is the distance from the ground to through the heddles to my fell line, and I put a clamp on it so I know where it is. Then the rest of this warp is the new warp that I'm going to be weaving with. What I like to do is then wind up that warp, the brand new warp that I'm going to be weaving into the cloth. I like to wind it up on a spool so that it kind of keeps it from tangling. Then I'm going to take this broken warp and tie another yarn to it so that I can pull my new one through. I'm going to pull this new yarn through to the other side of the loom, through the heddles. Now take that broken warp, and I'm going to pull it through the loom. Cut that extra warp that I pulled through. Now I'm going to take that new warp that I just finished winding up, and I put a clip at the junction between the short section that goes to the ground and the rest of the warp that goes through the rest of my weaving. And at that junction I'm going to tie this warp to that end of the new thread that I put through there. I'm going to pull both threads back through the loom to the other side. Now I'm going to pull both of those threads through the heddle so that now I have both threads here. Now I'm going to cut these two and make sure they don't fall through. Now I'm going to take the short section that goes through the loom and down to the ground to keep tension on this warp. So I'm going to tie those two together. Now I've tied my old broken warp to the new warp that's going to be just applying tension to this. It just goes over to the other side of the loom, and I'm going to hang a weight on it so that then I have the proper tension of the warp. This is the new warp that I'm going to be weaving with, and I'm going to take the standard tie pin, put it through the cloth, and put a knot around it as you've seen in other videos. Now you can see, and I've used a piece of paper so you can see this warp. I have this warp that was broken and tied it to a spare warp yarn, and that goes through the loom and down to the ground for a weight. The brand new warp I'm going to be weaving with Now in standard form like we've seen in other videos, I have it going down to a T-pin and I put it through the cloth and do a little figure 8 so that it's attached to it and firm. Now what I have is the warp that was broken. You let it just dangle below. This is my weight for the old warp that was broken that I'm going to trim off. And that goes down, and you put whatever system of weights you want to put on that thread. The new warp that I'm going to be weaving with in the cloth also comes over in the same area, goes down, and whatever weight system you want to use, you apply to that yarn. And here's the rest of the warp for the weaving of the cloth. Now I've got 2 threads that are going through that heddle and into the cloth. Now we're ready to go back to weaving, and I've got those 2 you can see right here side by side. So now I'll start weaving again. And you're probably not able to see it, but the new warp that I'm going to be weaving into the cloth starts from that T-pin and goes right into the fabric alongside the old one. Now I've put about 3/4 inch of picks through since I attached the new warp. And I love this pattern. It's Bertha's Towels from November-December issue of Handweaving in 2012. And I love using the I Weave It program because it's a rather complex pattern with 5 different colored shuttles here. What I'm going to do is take the weight off of that old one, and now I have that broken one, and this is the one that was just barely over the edge of the loom into the floor, and put a weight on it, and I've already taken the weight off of it. So what I'm going to do is cut this and poke it down in below the weaving and discard this short amount of yarn that I used to weight it. Now I've still got my new yarn attached to the T-pin, and I'm going to put quite a bit more distance on it because it's under more pressure. But it's attached to the yarn that's a long distance yarn to enough to finish the cloth weaving. Now you can see my new warp that's hanging over the edge of the beam, and I've attached it to weight and whatever weights you like to use. But I like to use this clamp and a stick attached to it so that it doesn't untwist the yarn, and then it's more fragile, break easy. So I like this system, but it's whatever system you'd like to use. And now I've got my brand new warp attached into the cloth, and I'm going to weave a lot more cloth before I take out the T-pin. So that's how I like to do a broken warp. I've got it attached to the T-pin, and I'm going to do a whole lot more, a few inches before I take out my T-pin. And that's why I like to fix broken warps. Whichever system you like to use is fine. I like this system though because I don't have to take that broken warp and take a needle and sew it back through the cloth. It's already being sewed into the cloth.